Actually, my name's Cassie, but today it's about building in Ghana. Just the pros and cons of building overseas. Um, so I have some set information that I would like to give out. If anybody has any questions, you can just put that in the chat, and I will get to those questions. So today's live is about building in Ghana. Um, I can only speak for Ghana because that's where I have the experience of building a home. What I would like to say to start off with is I'm not a I'm not a professional estate agent or anything. I don't have the required qualifications. All this information is more of an opinion and is more of myself recounting our experiences. So if you would like professional information, if you would like professional advice, I would advise you to seek the knowledge of somebody who's qualified in land ownership and in workmanship in Ghana. So this is just, I'm just recounting our experiences and just giving tips based on the advice that was given to ourselves and advice that we followed. Also as well, when we built in Ghana, we made lots of mistakes. There are lots of errors that we're happy to share the information with you so you can learn from where we went wrong. And also each area, each neighborhood in Ghana is different. So what I may say for one area may not be the case in another area. Okay, so the first thing when deciding to build in Ghana is decide whether you're building a home or you're building a place you want to rent out, whether it's on Airbnb or regular rental. So the first thing you need to decide is whether or not it's a home or whether or not it's a business, a build to let kind of situation. Also, as well, in Ghana, as far as I'm aware, people pay rent year by year. So people usually pay rent on a yearly basis, which is part of the reason why we've decided to have an Airbnb because we're able to charge rent on a more regular basis. Real Madrid or Barcelona. But anyway, yeah. So hi Mike and hi Yasmin. So a rental, just so you know, in Ghana is people pay rent year by year. Thank you, Demon Slayer. Much appreciated. Hope you've had a good morning. So if you decide to do something like an Airbnb, that might be a bit more worth your while. Depending on which area you go to, the land can be quite cheap. If the land is very cheap, you need to find out why. You don't want to build on a swamp, or you don't want to build somewhere where it's been earmarked to be bulldozed over and build flats. So you need to do your research on the land that you're buying. You also need to make sure that you are actually buying the land. There have been cases where people have like say more than three people have bought the same piece of land. They got scammed and stuff. So you need to make sure you're actually buying land that's available and you're buying it from the right person. So what I would advise you to do is to research the land, research who owned it beforehand, go to the land registry place, find out who has the deed for the land, make sure everything is completely legit, 100% make sure you have the correct documentation, and just verify the person who's selling the land to you. Lots of people have been caught out on that whole buying land thing, so that's something you need to be really careful of. In regards to building a place in Ghana, you would need to you do need to get a building permit. um, depending on whether or not it's you're building a store, or a place of business or a home, you'd need to actually be able to produce a permit, and the building permit needs to be with you before you start building. So literally in Ghana, if there are labourers working on land, they can be required to produce a permit, and if they're unable to produce their permit, the building has to stop. And so labourers, workers can actually be prevented from doing any type of work if a permit isn't produced. So you need to research the permit. What I would also advise is the first thing that you would need to do is to build a wall. That's priority. Before you do anything, just build your wall. In Ghana, they call it fencing. That's where we made one of our mistakes. We didn't build a fencing for years, to be honest. I mean, even now, we still haven't completed our fencing. And what's really bad about that is that you can get cheated out of the amount of land you have, because obviously, if you buy a certain amount of land and you have neighbours, they can, if they've built their fence before you, they can encroach on your land. So the first thing that I would say that you should do, one of our biggest mistakes, is you need to build a wall. In regards to the wall, I mean, depending on what type of experience you want in Ghana, it can either be really high or it can be really low. My outlook was that I wanted it to be low enough for the neighbours to see what was going on, because clearly we're not based there all the time. But I didn't want a high wall because then the neighbours wouldn't be able to see and monitor what people were doing. So I didn't want a wall too high that people can't actually see, or the you know be able to see who was there and what they were doing. Obviously, there's pros and cons to that. Some people, they don't want people to be able to see into their front and backyard, and fair enough. But in Ghana, it is illegal to climb over somebody's wall. It is illegal to enter somebody's property without permission, and obviously, if you don't have a wall, that defeats the whole you know purpose of it. Also, as well, if a child or if an animal or something goes into your land and they hurt themselves, or there's an incident and there was no wall, you can be accountable for that, because you didn't put any safety measures in place to protect people from any hazards on your land. Um, Potential lockdown. What can be a good idea is if you can make a budget plan of how much money you're going to spend on building, and maybe have a time schedule as well. So you might say to yourself that this is the amount of money I'm willing to spend. I'm willing to spend over this amount of time. So then that way, you're not constantly being just asked for money. If you're able to have your own budget, it's like each month you'll be able to prioritize other things and not feel like each month you're giving money. So some people have had experiences where they've sent money to Ghana over the years, and then when it's come down to seeing what's been built, they've been scammed. There was no building, there was nothing happening, and those things do happen. However, they don't happen all the time, and it's not every time that happens. Although yes, it does happen. Um, we were we weren't physically present while our home was being built, but when we finally did go and see it, it was there, it was built, no issues. We definitely paid a lot more money than what we would have paid if we were there. I mean, black tax is real. So if you're just sending money to Ghana to get stuff done, people will probably take more money than what's required. However, that's a cost that you need to calculate whether or not it's worth it or not. Um, Also, in regards to your workers that you will use for the building work, you need to put some thought into it. You need to decide if it's going to be workers from the area or workers from outside the area. At the beginning, we used workers from outside the area, but what was happening is because they weren't from the area, it was hard to track them down in certain scenarios. So consider whether you want people from out of the area or in the area. One of the workers that came from out of the area, ended up running away with one of our neighbours' daughters and stuff. So that was drama. Um, but then sometimes if you use workers within the area and if anything goes wrong, these are people that are still around you. So you need to decide which would be best. But you can either use workers from outside of the area, or you can use local workers. One of the benefits to using local workers is that if you treat them well, they will build up your good reputation. But also that can backfire if you fall out with them and they're local. They're just gonna go around talking about you. Also, as well, you can. I can't stress enough how important it is to have all your documentation in place. Have all your documentation in place. So that would be your land deed, your land ownership papers, your just make sure that your land documentation is on point. Make sure you're registered at the land registry. Hi, Sel Cook Your Diz. Hi, hello Turkey. I hope you're keeping well. Thank you for joining my live. Yeah, so just make sure the ownership is patterned and you have documentation. Also, in regards to energy efficiency, you may want to look into installing solar panels or generators, or you may just want to find out about energy efficient equipment that you can use on your property. We have some automatic lights on our property that is solar paneled, I think. Solar, was it, would you call it? I don't know. We have lights that come on automatically when it's dark. And so what happened in the area where we lived, people appreciated having bas- basically there weren't enough street lights. There's not enough street lights in the area where we live and in Ghana. And so because we had automatic lights come on in the night, the community really appreciated the fact that there were now lights that automatically came on at night where we lived. And so then that meant that a lot more people used to, you know, because I've got a theory. I've got a theory about our neighbours' plants and neighbours, crop, what do you call it? You know, our neighbours, what do you call it? Plants and trees and everything else, vegetables. Because of our lights that used to come on at dusk, I feel like they really benefited because it meant that their plants had light during the day and were also had light in the night. And I personally feel like their crops grew a lot faster because basically their crops are under 24-hour light. I can never prove it, but that's my theory because they have really good trees and crops and plants that grow really well in comparison to our other neighbours. And I honestly feel like it's because of our lights that come on in the evening. But yeah, so you can find energy efficient um, things for your home. You can calculate upfront costs. In Ghana, the rate of inflation is mad. The cities can go up and down at any time. So certain work building materials would have cost one thing 2 years ago, and now it's a whole different ball game. And so, in regards to the building materials, do your research, find out if they've gone up, find out if you can stock certain items, such as iron rods and stuff. Find out if you can just stockpile certain items until the time you use it, because if you wait, the prices may have drastically gone up by the time you use it. Also, as well, in regards to having an Airbnb, or you may decide to rent out your property, do a risk assessment on the home. So that would be in regards to fire alarms, um, fire exits, just safety measures that you can put in the home. The most popular, one of the most popular items of security are burglar bars, which are bars on the windows. They're not practical if there's a fire, because literally you're locking yourself in. But you can buy shutters that can open from the inside. Um, else? What else is there? Also, as well, in regards to where you decide to, in regards to where you decide to put your location. Hello, Kweku Kwateng. My name's Cassie Logan. I hope you're well. So in regards to the location, part of the reason why land might be very cheap is because of the lack of amenities and infrastructure. So to be fair, where we live, we're not, it's not a built up area. It's not a built up area. There aren't many things around. Is quite tucked away, which which helped with the price, but then you're not in the heart of the city. So, in regards to the land that you buy, consider the location. However, in Ghana, you may build in the middle of nowhere one day, but within 5 years, that area might become built up. So, you need to weigh up what the pros and cons are. But definitely, location is a thing. 100%. Um, Also, what I would say is decide what type of experience you want when you decide to build in Ghana. What type of experience? So some people would like to live in a gated community. So some people would just like to live amongst other people from the US or from the UK or from Canada. So some people don't want any neighbors that are Ghanaians. They just rather live amongst people that that are not from Ghana. And other people don't mind living within the community. Other people don't mind interacting with their neighbors, attending church locally. And so decide what you want your experience to be like, whether or not you would like to be isolated or you would like to be part of the community. Um, in regards to building a home in Ghana, be expected to have delays. Sometimes things happen. There's rainy season, where people can't actually work on your building. Um, Partway through our building, there was like a huge rain and part of our roof collapsed. So we had to start the roof again, which caused a delay and caused additional financial requirements. And so probably have an emergency fund for any issues that might come up in your while you're building. Um, in this day and age, it's a lot easier. Well, I was gonna say in this day and age, it's a lot easier because you can watch WhatsApp videos and stuff. But I've heard of people that have scanned people by sending them videos of a whole different place. So I mean, we didn't fly out. We didn't go out there while we were having our place built, and that is a risk. That's definitely a risk. But yeah, we just couldn't get out there because of COVID and stuff until a couple of years ago. Um, what I would say as well is have a floor plan. Have a floor plan. Know how you want the layout to be. That might be quite helpful if you actually have an idea of what you want your layout to be. Um, I think there's a two-edged sword in becoming part of the community. The community will investigate you if you decide to incorporate yourself within the community. They will find out who you are, where you work, who your family is, what you're doing there. So whether you're there on business, whether you're just there on a pension, whether you're just there as a on a career break, people will try and investigate and find out who you are and what you're doing there, who your family is. And the reason why they do that, it took a while for me to understand, but they need to know who they're living next to. They need to know if they're safe. They need to know what type of people are entering their community. And in Ghana, people are just a lot more open with each other about what they do. In London, we more keep to ourselves, but in Ghana, it's not like that. And when you look at different challenges that face people, they have to be like that. Yes, I'm Ghanaian. I was born in Ghana, but I came here as a child and I was raised here. But yeah, so what I would say is be good to your workers, be good to the labourers. Don't let the labourers have wild stories to put out there about you. If you're gonna pay them on time. Um, because when our neighbours try to find out about myself and my partner, they came to a lot of they came to um, they came to a lot of assumptions that weren't true about us. And in fact, it was the workers and the labourers that put people straight and said, "Oh no, no," um, you know. So our labourers and our workers, without our knowing, actually defended us to a lot of people because a lot of people just came to the wrong conclusions about us and what we were doing there and where we got our money from. So we go to Ghana part of the year, and then we come back to London. So we spend time in Ghana, then we come back to London. So we go back and forth. Where are you based, Kwaku Kwateng? Are you based in Ghana? But yeah, so what I will say is be mindful how you treat people. Obviously, it's up to you how you treat people, but there will be some circumstances where it will be good to have people that can defend you in situations, or it will be good to have people that can speak on your behalf in situations where you're not there. Another thing I'll also say is, depending on what your experience is, on depending on what you want your experience to be, it will be good to reinvest in the community where you are. So this can be through official channels, so maybe local schools or local clinics or local hospitals. You can just reinvest maybe in schools. You can give away exercise books or pens, pencils, educational supplies. So what we do is we give supplies to our local schools as a reinvestment to the community. You know, so it's depending on what you want your experience to be like. It can be a good idea to just reinvest in the area where you live. I wouldn't advise giving people money, but perhaps through their local clinics or local pharmacies or local hospitals or local schools, you can just reinvest in the area. But that's not for everyone. But I would say that's a good idea. My sister-in-law, when she has a party, she gets a minibus and collects some people from her area to attend the party, so they can enjoy free food and music and just have some fun. And then afterwards, after the party, she uses a minibus again to take them back to their home. So it's just a way of giving back to the local community where you might reside. I wouldn't advise giving people money. I wouldn't advise that. But through official channels, you can always try perhaps to give back to where you are. Also, that will keep you on the inside track of information going around. But for some people, that's not something that they would like to do. And, obviously, that's not for everybody. Um, Also, as well, security. Um, you're in Kumasi. Oh, pleased to meet you. On what to say? Okay, so security. So we all know how the Americans get down. We all know how they get down. We know what type of security they got up in their homes, um, which is useful, but definitely always have it on a safety catch and 100%. Yeah, just yeah. Yes, I am married. I've been married for coming up to 8 years now. Happily married. Um, in fact, if you watch one of my other lives, you will see me diffusing my partner's hair, diffusing his curls. Yeah, if you look on one of my lives, I think from last week, it's called diffusing my partner's curls. Okay, so in regard and Kwaku, what advice would you give us in regards to security in Ghana? What would you advise us would be the best way to stay safe? So, some people have a security man on site. Um, I think being tapped into the local community is always helpful. Um, I'll say being tapped into the local community. Um, Obviously, if you have a gated community, that's really safe. Living within a gated community. But if not, and you're not in a gated community, obviously we know how the Americans get down. So have a couple of those in your home. Um, Cameras is good, definitely cameras, and hopefully cameras is a deterrent. But the good thing about Ghana is pretty much like the USA is if anybody tries to enter your home forcibly, if anybody climbs your wall or anything else, it's completely down to you how you deal with that person. So, if they try and, force an entry, it's your call what you do and what happens. And so that's a really good that's one of the good things about Ghana. You can actually protect yourself and your family in case of any issues. But cameras can be a good deterrent. Um, Having links within the community is always good. And yeah, and for some people, being in a gated community is the answer. Um, yeah, yeah, definitely. So there's definitely things you can do to keep yourself safe. But safety is definitely an issue. I mean, yeah. So security. I think depending on what kind of experience you want is the key. Um, Depending on what type of experience you want, living in Ghana would be the key. Um, so that's about it. 100%. Once again, what I would say is, if you are looking to buy land, make sure you're not being scammed. I mean, when you go to Ghana, pretty much, like, from what I can see, all land belongs to somebody. Yeah. So as far as I can tell, when you go to Ghana, all land belongs to somebody. So it either belongs to a family, it's either family owned, it either belongs to a person, or it belongs to the government, as far as I can tell. But all land is owned. Like, don't let anybody try and act like, oh, there's just this land lying around. Do you want to buy it? No, like, all land belongs to somebody, and it's always a good idea to maybe talk to the neighbors. Like, oh, yeah. So talk to the neighbors. I mean, it's difficult if you don't speak their language, and if they don't speak English, that can be difficult. But where possible, speak to the neighbours, and also try and find out who was the previous owner of the land. Yeah. Get your building permit. In regards to building, I would say building a multi-story makes more sense. I mean, I'll say building a multi-story, even if it's like 2 floors. But I think that's you're making more use of the land. But it's up to you. Some people just want 1 floor. Okay, Kweku, thank you for joining my live. Please like the live. Take care. Thank you again for joining. Much appreciated. I hope you join one of my other lives. Yeah, so bye to Kweku. Thank you for joining from Kumasi. But yeah, I would say that, land, all land belongs to somebody. So don't let anybody say that, oh yeah, there's this land doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to someone. So if possible, find out who the previous owner was, and talk to your neighbours as well, about the land. A lot of the land, from what I've noticed from the area that we're in, the land is so fertile. Like, honestly, the land is very, very fertile. So I would advise, where possible, depending on how you want to landscape the front and back of your home, to plant trees and plant flowers, or just hire a landscaper to do it for you. But honestly, if you plant a few trees, if you think of your future generations, like your descendants. Mentiase, kwaku mentiase, usi dai, usi me ho yɛ fɛ, meda ase. Unni dai. But anyway, yeah. So what I'm saying is that, what was I saying? Yeah, I think it's really good if you can plant some trees, plant some. Kwaku na uka na mentiase, usi me ho yɛ fɛ, meda ase. And so now uka and mini mini wa boa. Mentiase na uka wa echino. And so usi me ho yɛ fɛ. Thank you very much. But yeah, so if you can, just plant some trees, plant some flowers, because for your future generations, they'll have all these, like, they'll have all this shade to sit underneath and to remember you by. Um, One of our neighbours has planted a mango tree, and I'm not gonna lie, let me not say it on Big Old Live, but yeah, one of our neighbours planted a mango tree, and that tree is, like I said before, I feel like the lights that automatically comes on has helped his crops grow. So yeah, so you can plant coconut tree, mango tree. Some people plant plantain. Was it plantain tree? flowers. But the land is so fertile, so depending on what you want to do, you can. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. I mean, you should join my community and get to know my other subscribers, Kweku. That would be helpful. If you're, you know, if you think long term, you can subscribe and then get to know my other subscribers, because I will be in Ghana soon doing content. But yeah, it's up to you. Thank you. Yeah, what else was I going to say? In regards to location as well, um, so where we built, it's changed so much in a period of 5 years. In 5 years, it's changed so much. It's become a lot busier. One of the main roads has been constructed, which has brought a lot more traffic to our area, and that's just within 5 years. And so potentially, you might look in the area and think, this area isn't really, there's not much going on here. But depending on what your requirements are, it could be in an investment. But that depends on what your requirements are. You might want to be like in the middle of the city and stuff, which which is, yeah. So that's it really. That's all I have to say on building in Ghana. Yes, there are scammers, 100%. You need to be careful. But yeah, but also as well, you can build successfully. And I would advise building a multi-story. So I would advise building more than one floor. Also as well, what I would advise is that you can just build, depending on how much land you buy, you can just build a small apartment for yourself. You don't have to use up all the land. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you do not have to build on the whole land. You can just build a little, what, 1, 2 bed apartment, just a simple, small place on the land until you decide what else you want to build on the land. Because you might want to build a shop or a car wash or a wholesalers, or you just might want to plant crops. So I would say you don't have to build on the whole land, you know. Also, I would say build multi-story. I think that's more efficient. It can just be 2 floors or 3 floors with a rooftop. Also, as well, plant trees. You definitely have to be careful because we all know that the roots of the trees can disturb the tiles, and so obviously if you're planting trees, you it might be more advisable to get the services of a landscaper to make sure that the roots, when the tree as the tree gets older, bigger, the roots don't disturb your tiles and your foundation. What have you? Um, Workers. Um, I wouldn't advise you to have people all up in your home all the time. Like I do my own cleaning. It's a lot of cleaning to do, and I have to do it room by room. But I just do my own cleaning for now, anyway. I guess when we start our Airbnb, that might have to change. But we don't have a gate man. We don't need a gate man. We can open the gates ourselves. We don't even have gate. We don't even have a gate. That's another mistake as well that I said earlier on. As soon as you buy land, make sure you build a wall around it. That's a mistake that we made. Even up to now, we still haven't completed our wall. Like, we've just been so lazy. We built our home, and all the time we didn't have a wall. And we regret it. So the biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes we made, is that we didn't build a wall. Also, the land where we're located, the neighbors, like, the community used to use that piece of land as a shortcut. Yeah. So where we bought was just like land, and people just used to cut through as a shortcut. So when we bought the land, we were building a house, we still used to let the people cut through, because obviously there's going to come a time that you're not going to be able to cut through like this, like a little shortcut that you've all made it out to be. And so in time, as we started the wall and everything, people couldn't cut through anymore. So, we should have just done the wall. So I really recommend any of you to do that. Fire extinguishers and everything else needed in a home. Do the risk assessment. Also, as well, we used to get lots of like, because one of our neighbours is hasn't kept up on their property, hasn't kept up on their land. Like we used to get a lot of like insects and stuff. We used to get insects and stuff in our home because of the neighbours hadn't kept up on their land. So there are a couple of trees that can deter different insects and stuff. I've forgotten what the trees are, but there's trees that you can plant in your yards that can keep certain types of insects away. So that's a good shout. Don't treat your workers badly. Like your workers and labourers, don't treat them badly. If you're meant to pay them money, pay them the money. Because if they're from the local area, they will finish your reputation. What else is there? Yeah, that's it really. That's it really. That's it really. Yeah, that's it really. So thank you for joining my live. Does anybody have any questions on building land in Ghana? I mean, you hear so many horror stories, and I just wanted to come on here and talk about my experience because my experience was fine. Obviously, we did end up spending more money than perhaps what we needed to, but that's just one of those things. Call it a black tax. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so my partner bought the land in 2016. Um, and he started the foundation and stuff. I met him in 2017. I was studying. We got married in 2018, and I was still a student. And I qualified in 2020, and then I was able to financially support building our home. So then in 2020, the roof caved in or something. There was rain, and there was some big like we got set back quite a lot, and so we had to do the roof again, and then we completed the building was completed in 2023, and so for that whole period, neither of us had gone to Ghana to look at the building. It was just being done under our supervision, under pictures, under videos. So we finally saw the completed building in 2023, and it was fine. So that's our story. You hear lots of horror stories, but yeah, you know, from the time that my partner bought the land in 2016 to the time he met me in 2017, he hadn't physically seen the land. We got married in 2018. I qualified in 2020, and then we were both able to seriously invest towards the property. And then 2023, the building was completed. We went out there in 2023 to see it for the first time, both of us, and it was fine. So it can be done. It is possible. Definitely horror stories out there, but not in every case. As I said, where possible, you can reinvest in your community through official channels. So I wouldn't advise giving people money, but through official channels, maybe through the church or through the local school or the local clinic, local hospital, you can reinvest into the community. Or you just may want to live in a gated community and not know anybody. So some people would prefer that as well. Some people would just rather not know their neighbours. Um, when it comes to security, you know, there's things you can have in the home that will protect you. Some people actually have a security guard at the gate. Some people have cameras, you know, some people have all of those things, a combination of those things. So security is something you may want to think about. You know, sometimes there would be the lights would go off. And to be honest, when the lights will go off, if you've got AC and the lights go off, it gets really hot inside. So what we used to do, we just used to go for a night walk in the we just used to go for night walks, and everybody would be out. Um, yeah, so that's what I would say. Count the cost, have your floor plan, decide what type of experience you want, navigate the costs, look into energy efficient designs and material choices. Um, if you're going to ship things from where you live, find out if that's financially viable. Like, does it make sense financially? Also, if you're shipping things from one country to Ghana, make sure that it can withstand the heat, because obviously, you know, there's equipment, there's materials that we have in our countries that can only function up until a certain temperature. And so if you decide to ship those same materials and equipment to Ghana, just be aware if it can still function in that heat. Some people may decide to establish a spot, also known as a nightclub or something, and just be aware of what your area is like. Find out if your area will appreciate it. Find out what type of people you will attract. You may have some ashowos that might frequent your bar. So these are all things that you need to decide. I remember I wanted to buy some dolls for somebody, for some children, for my family, basically. I want to buy some dolls. And I remember looking at the dolls that I was planning to buy. And I just thought, like, dolls in the West are dressed very inappropriately. Seriously, like, dolls in the West are dressed very inappropriately. And so sometimes you have to consider whether or not you're you know you know sometimes you have to consider if you're importing things of destruction. you know I don't want to influence young girls to dress a certain way, or to view themselves a certain way. So even the clothes that I might decide to buy for people, or just certain things, we just have to be mindful of the influence that we can bring into certain spaces, basically. So we need to be mindful of the influences that we may not realize we're bringing from the West over there. A lot of young girls in Ghana, when they're in school, they're not meant to wear makeup, they're not meant to wear nail polish, they're not meant to relax their hair. They just have short hair until they finish school. So that's the culture there. So because we don't have the culture in London, I have to make sure that I don't go over and corrupt any young girls in school by buying them makeup or buying them nail polish, or encouraging them to do things to their hair that they're not allowed to do in school. So what I would say is that sometimes, all the time, I would say we need to be mindful of the culture that we're importing when we're over there, and we need to make sure that we are good influences, and we're not coming over with corrupting their system or their youth, or what have you. Um, that's it really. I think that's everything. Prioritize your money. Um, prioritize your money. If people are contacting you saying that, oh, we have an unexpected expense, oh, you need to send more money, you need to have your own cap. So have your own limits on each month or on each week, so it doesn't look as if like if you're using building materials and you keep being asked for money to cover different things, why don't you consider contacting the shops themselves and sending the money direct to the shop for the equipment? Do you see what I mean? Obviously, that can't always be the case. But for an example, if someone is paying school fees, you can actually pay the school directly and just cut out the middleman. If somebody's paying for somebody's hospital care, you can send the money directly to the hospital, cut out the middleman. The same with the materials and the goods, you know, where possible, you can say, well, hey, I will send the money to the wholesalers, I will send the money to, you know, and you know, hopefully cut out any dash money that way. But yeah, so I would definitely advise building in Ghana at your own pace. Don't feel pressure, don't feel rushed to spend all the money you have out there. Before you start, definitely count the cost. Um, you know, count do evaluate what the cost will be potentially. Um, Look at the material choices that are available. Where possible, in some materials like iron rods, etc., perhaps you can stockpile it and buy lots of it so you have it there. So then, regardless of any price hike, you're good. Your building permit is something you'll need to source as well. Your building permit, and have a floor plan where you can contact the land registry, have your deed title for the land and everything else. But as I said to start with, I'm not a qualified estate agent or land person, so make sure you speak to the necessary persons. I'm just giving you advice based on my experiences and tips, so you can learn from our mistakes. Some people buy a house, so instead of buying land and building on it, they buy a whole house. Hi Theo, of course I remember you. How are you? Are you doing a YouTube video today? Yeah, so some people decide to buy land and build on it, or some people just may decide to buy a home. And I think now in Ghana, you can actually get a mortgage in Ghana. I don't know how that works, so talk to somebody professional, but that's an option. Theo, how's your week been? It's been quite sunny here in London, so everyone's excited. How's it been where you are? Oh, what's wrong? What's wrong, Theo? If it's too personal, don't put it on here. If it's too personal. You broke your leg. What happened? Were you climbing trees? What happened? How did you break your leg? What happened to your leg? And have you had an X-ray? Um, yeah. So that's the information on building in Ghana. How did you break your leg, Theo? And have you had an X-ray? Is it in a cast? Okay, but did your team win? That's the question. And did you score a goal? Not really. I'm just joking. Is it in a cast? Yeah, so that's building in Ghana. I would recommend it. You know, myself and my partner, we've had good experiences. We've made lots of mistakes that hopefully you can all learn from. As I said, as soon as you buy your property, oh, I slipped so hard. Oh man, which leg is it? Have you broken it before? It's a shame I can't virtually sign the cast, but get your cast signed by your friends and family. What's that sorry? Yeah, so no to no to what? Did you lose the game or have you had an X-ray? No, I've never ever, never ever touch touch wood. But please don't jinx me. Do not jinx me. I haven't broken a thing. Um, but have you had an X-ray and is it in a cast? I'm sorry you broke your leg. So that's all I have on building in Ghana. It's always a gamble, is what I'll say. Yeah, you Theo, I'm asking you. Is it in a cast, Theo? And did you have an X-ray, Theo? And I hope you're resting your leg, Theo. Um, that sounds painful though. Okay, okay, so you're in recovery mode. I hope you're resting, Theo. So you're in recovery mode, yeah? So Theo, when it comes to healing, Theo, vitamin C and protein is very good for the healing process. No, but you don't need to put it on here, okay? I don't know, but you don't need to put it on here. Um, okay. But Theo, why don't you make a YouTube video about it? Theo, why don't you make a YouTube video about breaking your leg? I think that would be really interesting. All right. For some reason, I thought you were like, okay, fair enough. I thought you were, okay. But yeah, Theo, why don't you do a YouTube video about it? I think that would be really entertaining. Yeah. So thank you for joining my live about building in Ghana. What I will say is that it's a risk. You don't want your fans to be scared, but okay, fair enough, Theo. But I think, hmm, okay, yeah, but Theo, I think sometimes this is part of life for some children, and for some children, okay. Anyway, you know your fans best, but I thought it would be an experience that you can demystify, or but yeah, you know your fans best. But I thought, yeah, in a way you could demystify it, and some of them might be able to relate to it. They might have an elder sibling that had their legs broken, but fair enough, fair enough. What's the healthcare system where you are? Like, do you have to pay when you go in, or is it paid through taxes, or do you actually have to pay when you physically like go into hospital? Or if you call it ambulance, what's the situation? Is it free? Is it paid for your taxes or really? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So in London, we pay through our taxes. So we've already paid for it through our taxes. I cannot imagine calling the ambulance and them asking me for money. That is crazy. And in a way as well, I feel like when a system is that way, I feel like there's lots of things that people won't receive care for because they don't have money. And where does that leave people if they have something that's contagious? For example, sexual health, you know, if people have something contagious and they have to pay for healthcare, where's the incentive to to get it sorted? But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. It's something I feel strongly about. But Theo, I hope you're resting. I hope you were able to get some pain relief, paracetamol or something. So hopefully you're not in pain at the moment. But yeah, I'm sorry about that. Sorry to hear about the broken leg. Was it your left leg or right leg? But yeah, so so I finished the live on building in Ghana. But thank you for joining the live, everybody, about building left. Are you left-handed or right-handed, Theo? Let me think. So what you have to do, because you're so young, what you have to do is make sure you don't break that leg again. You have to make sure you do not break your left leg again. Because, you know, make sure you don't. How did you slip? Was it raining? Right. Or did somebody slide tackle you? And was the game abandoned after that happened? Oh yeah, it was raining. I thought so. Oh, just make sure you don't break your left leg again. Otherwise, it's just gonna continue to keep. Theo, do you do extreme sports? Anyway, I'm sorry you broke. Anyway, I'm sorry you broke your leg, Theo, but you'll be fine. Just rest up. Get people to sign the cast. That's the best part of it. And if your leg itches, use a hanger, a coat hanger, or um, use a hanger or I don't know, a fork or something to get in the cast to itch the leg. But I'm sorry, and I hope you have pain relief. But anyway, I'm gonna go now. So do your fans know that you break your leg, Theo? Or is it a secret? And I'm gonna go in a minute. You slipped. Sorry, it's not funny. I thought someone slide tackled you and you broke your leg. Boy. But yeah, sorry to hear that. Do you have pain relief? Like, are you taking painkillers for your leg? Like, you're not in pain now, are you? Okay, good. Well, okay, good, good. Just be comfortable. Just stay comfortable. But yeah, swimming is good. Like, if you want to stop playing football and swim instead, I go swimming like twice a week, once or twice a week, and you're not at risk of breaking anything. So if you want to give up football and do swimming instead, I'll recommend that. But I'm gonna go now, Theo. I'm sorry that's happened to you. And yeah, so I will be back on Wednesday on my other live. I hope I've been helpful. Bye, Theo. Take care and make sure you rest your leg. Rest your leg, 100%. And thank you all for joining the live. I encourage you to build in Ghana. It's a great investment. And I will see you all another time. Please like the live and thank you for joining. Bye. Bye, Theo. Take care.